Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Yara HarvestPlus Solutions podcast. As we kick off the National Nutrition Week in India, pleased to have Sanjiv Kanwar, Managing Director, Yara South Asia, and Ravinder Grover, Global Business Manager from HarvestPlus Solutions, to share their valuable insights on achieving nutritional security to shape a nature positive food future. Yara is a global leader specializing in crop nutrition with a global presence. The company is headquartered in Oslo, Norway, and listed in the Oslo Stock Exchange. Today, we have Sanjiv Kanwar, Managing Director, Yara South Asia, with us. And we'll get into a conversation with him and understand his point of views on nutrition and also how he relates nutrition to the other aspects of the ecosystem. So, hello, Sanjiv.
Yeah. Hello, Vaishali. Thank you for having me with you.
So, Sanjeev, India is on a cusp of a long awaited economic takeoff, and it is expected to witness a growth in the international market. How important is agriculture to boost India's economic growth, according to you?
Yeah, that's a very useful and interesting question, Vaishali. When we look at Indian agriculture, we see that almost 60% of India's population is engaged in the business of agriculture, and they are contributing around 15% to the India's GDP. And when we look at the projections that many of financial institutions are making with respect to India's economy, we see that there's a general consensus that India would be hitting about US $10 economic size by 2035. And for Indian agriculture, assuming it maintains its 15% contribution to India's GDP, it means that we have to grow this in sector to around $1.5 trillion in the next 10 cropping cycles, which is a big ask, considering the fact that today India's in agriculture is just delivering around a value of about $480 billion. So there's a huge opportunity which India's agriculture presents. And the fact of the matter is that 60% of India's population is engaged in the business of agriculture. And unless they deliver this $1.5 trillion economy value to India, India's economic growth is not going to be sustainable in the long run. So, in my personal perspective and my personal view, India's agriculture is extremely important. Growth in this sector is vital if India really needs to hit the $10 trillion economy that we feel we will hit in the next 10 years. So, what does Indian agriculture represent to us? It represents a huge opportunity because you're looking at growing the economy by almost 3.5 times in the next 10 years. I don't think any other sector has either the opportunity or the potential to do that.
Thanks. Thanks for putting the facts on the table. Now, what, according to you, are the challenges faced by this sector, and how do you think these issues can be sorted? Means, how can ecosystem players come together and nourish the next generations through their concerted efforts?
Yeah, I think, let's say, when we look at Indian agriculture, the key challenges one would say is the number one challenge is obviously soil health. Because when we do the soil test analysis across India, and we see that there are huge deficiencies of secondary and micronutrients coming up in the soil, which are acting as a limiting factor for increasing our farm productivity. And that is borne out by the fact that our cereal crop production generally is running at about 50% lower than the global levels, which is a bit alarming. And we need to keep in mind that the nutrient use efficiency in India has been coming down over the last 50 years. In 1960, 1 kg of NPK could produce around 12 kgs of grain. Now it's down to as low as 5 kgs of grain, which means that the drop is about 60%. So something has to be done very quickly on the soil health side of it. The second challenge that India faces is rather dramatic. It's climate change, which is affecting the availability of water in India. Water scarcity is a big challenge for us. We are just coming out of an El Nino event. which was one of the most brutal ones that I've seen in my last 30 years plus experience in this business. We have almost about 50 to 60% of India's agriculture, which is affected by water scarcity. So if you don't have water, how are you going to grow your crops? So that is an element that has to be sorted out. And the third is a combination of soil health and water scarcity is the lack of nutritive content of a food. I mean, if you look at the statistics, they're a bit scary. 3 out of every 5 children globally showing signs of stunting, they're actually in India. So 40% of India's children below the age of 5 are showing signs of zinc deficiency. So what kind of productive workforce will we have 20 to 30 years from now? We have, as we say, the youngest population in the world. But will this demographic advantage really pan out unless our workforce is healthy? The productivity of this workforce is going to be affected by by the food that they're going to have on their dinner table every day. So these are the three key areas which really need to be sorted out. And of course, the last one is, which we cannot really handle very easily, is that we are a country of 140 million smallholder farmers. To deliver knowledge, quality products is another challenge that has to be taken care of. And this cannot be sorted out by just one player or two players working in their individual sectors or individual part of the value chain. We come from a school of thought that every stakeholder has to come together, work together. For example, when we talk about soil health, the nutrition players, the crop nutrition companies like fertilizer companies, they need to innovate, bring in new technology, bring in new products and deliver to the farmers. When it comes to water scarcity, it has to be a combination of people in the fertigation sector and the crop nutrition companies who would come together to deliver high quality products which can be delivered along with the water that is being supplied to the crops, so that there's efficiency there and you get more crop per drop. We need to work with in the input side, we need to work with, let's say, the seed companies. Like the seed companies are coming in with high yield variety seeds, but unless you provide those plants with which have a high yield potential with the right crop nutrition, that yield potential is not going to be arrived. We're not going to achieve that. And then on the output side, you need to bring in the food companies. Today, the farmer is producing a crop which maybe you and I don't want to eat. So the food companies need to let the input players know that what is the food crop, that the quality of the crop that they need actually to be delivered to the consumers like you and me. And then we can work together to help the farmers produce what the market really needs rather than what they can produce. So in short, move Indian agriculture away from being supply driven to demand driven. And that is where the farmers will be able to be more productive and also enhance their incomes over the coming years. So this is where you cannot, one person cannot solve the problem. All of us need to work in a chain, as in a value chain, to help the farmers overcome the challenges that they're having.
Thank you so much. Thanks for putting things so simply and also giving a perspective on how value chain partners, ecosystem partners can come together and solve the larger challenge of not just productivity, but also the nutritional aspect. So we have another senior representative from our partner organization, HarvestPlus Solutions, with us. Mr. Ravinder Grover, who's the global manager for the food systems. HarvestPlus Solution is a non-profit entity established to address the barriers of scaling and distribution of biofortified seeds and food products to the vulnerable population. And they are doing an excellent job in building upon successful work conducted by HarvestPlus, a program of International Food Policy Research Institute, by translating its research and findings into widespread actions and integrating nutritious seeds and foods into agri-food systems globally, and ensuring that the vulnerable communities can improve their vitamin and mineral intake. Welcome, Ravinder, and great to have you on this podcast today. Now, continuing our discussion with Sanjiv, I would just like to ask you on how severe is India's malnutrition crisis, and what's the role climate change plays in worsening it. If we could have your thoughts on this, please.
Thank you, Vishali. Thanks for having me here. India's malnutrition crisis is indeed severe, with far-reaching implications. When you look at the global picture, nearly 1 in 2 children, 2 in 3 women are suffering from micronutrient deficiencies, and around 3 billion people can't afford a healthy diet. Now, this is scary. What is more scary is that unhealthy diets are now the leading cause of non-communicable diseases, which account for around 75% of the total deaths worldwide. Now, when it comes to India, the numbers are stark. If you look at the National Family Health Survey, 36.5% of the children under 5 are stunted. Nearly 67% of the children aged 6 months to 5 years, and 57% of the women less than 50 years of age are anemic. And in India, around 74% of the Indian population can't afford a healthy diet, and nearly 40% fall short of a nutrition adequate one. So now this situation is actually worsening with climate change, as we are seeing increase in CO2 levels. There's a drop in not only in the crop yields, but in the nutrition level, which is around 3 to 17%, particularly for iron, zinc, and protein in the key staple crops that we are consuming. And this is more so in the warmer part of the globe, particularly countries like India are most affected. And so, malnutrition is a big problem, but this is just not a health and nutrition problem. It's also an economic one. There's a strong impact on the GDP. Malnutrition also undermines workforce productivity, increases our healthcare costs, deepens our social inequality. So yes, the problem is fair and worsening with the climate change.
Thanks, Ravinder. Some of the statistics you shared are really, they're actually very scary. Now, how can partnerships like ours, which HarvestPlus Solutions in Yara India is having, between more ecosystem partners, drive solutions to this climate and nutrition challenge, according to you?
Sure, these partnerships are really important, but I think let's take a step back and see where agriculture and nutrition converges. So, agriculture and nutrition essentially meets at the very heart of food and nutritional security. And this connection is, all the more vital in India, where a large segment of our population depends on agriculture, not only for livelihood, but also for nourishment. Now, if you look at what has happened in last 5 decades, and this data point is very important because Sanjiv, somewhere in this conversation, mentioned about how nutrient use efficiency has decreased in last 5 decades. But what has also happened to the nutrient content of staples is even more alarming. If you look at our key staples, which are rice and wheat, you will observe that the zinc and iron content have decreased by up to 33% in rice and 30% in wheat, which means if you combine this with the ultra processing that we are having for these staples, what we are eating are nothing but empty calories. Now, this is a worrisome equation. Even on the dietary diversification side, we haven't been as successful either. And largely due to affordability. As they say, an apple a day can keep the doctor away, but that only works if apples are affordable for a family of 4 in the suburbs, right? And which is in most of the cases is not a reality. So, if we want to restore this connection, we need to focus on nutrition smart agriculture, and which can essentially combine of various innovations pertaining to soil health, plant nutrition, diversification, biofortification. And if we can do it right, then we can restore our food system. Now, no one can do it alone. This is a big task, and that's where these partnerships between the public, private, and development sectors become extremely crucial. Now, each sector has obviously its unique strengths. While public sector can bring the policy framework and allocate resources, private sector can innovate and scale at a lightning pace, and the development sector can come in and ensure that these solutions are inclusive and reach the most vulnerable populations. I'll also like to give you a good example of this. If you look at the Yara India HarvestPlus solution and managed partnership on NutriFarms initiative, this is precisely what this partnership has done. So this collaboration, which is focused around creating nutrition smart agriculture, starting with the wheat crop in UP, has led to significant achievements. There's a yield increase of up to 29% compared to the non-biofortified varieties. There's an income increase of around 42%, significant increase in zinc level for the wheat crop. And most importantly, this has restored the soil health and has improved the soil health status of the farms where this initiative was taken. So these are the kind of partnerships that can truly make a difference, driving both agriculture and nutritional outcomes, while we are addressing the challenges posted by climate change. So I think partnerships are a way to go.
Thanks, Ravinder. Thank you. And this is something which we've started as a very quick takeaway on what is our takes in terms of the key collaboration HarvestPlus Solution and Yara had, and also on the larger issue of what needs to be done, looking at the challenges which lie ahead in front of all of us. I would like to thank Sanjiv for bringing in the role of agriculture in where we are seeing the economy would grow going forward. We are betting on agriculture big time, and there are key challenges which need to be solved in the process, starting from soil, climate, water, and nutrition. And thank you, Ravinder, because you have touched on the very key aspects of how these partnerships would play a role going forward, and how do we actually tackle the climate change and tackle it in a way that nutrition does not get impacted, but we are able to provide nutritious solutions going forward. And you talked about nutrition smart agriculture, and I think that's the way to go. Thank you so much, both of you. And with this, we end this podcast. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to the audience for listening in.